July is Missionary Month here on Temple Bound. So whether you have a missionary leaving or coming home or somewhere in the middle, you don't want to miss these powerful episodes geared to help each of you in this process draw closer to Christ as you make these changes, all of it through the lens of the temple. Here's the hard truth in today's episode. If you're not preparing your kids for the temple, the world already is. TikTok, influencers, Netflix, they're training your kids whether you like it or not. And my guests today, JD and Kendra Dockstader, have spent 3 years teaching temple prep, and they're here to help you take it back, to help you remove the secrecy and add back the sacredness. JD and Kendra, thank you so much for being on Temple Bound. Why don't you set the table a little bit and tell the audience about who you are and what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So JD and Kendra Dockstader, we moved here and actually met you kind of early on in our first stint here in Arizona back in 2008 is when we moved here from most recently from California. And we've been here almost all that time except for a small stint when we moved back to Olathe, Kansas. We were there for 4 or 5 years and then moved back to the exact same house. So we love Arizona. Yeah. Kendra and I met in 1993.
Yeah.
In fact, just this morning, oddly enough, I reread the letter I used to propose to her, which was a mission call.
This morning?
Yeah, just this morning.
Wait, a letter that you read to her that was a mission call?
Yeah, so our kids about a year ago framed my proposal letter. All of her roommates were getting mission calls, and Kendra had not decided if she was going on a mission yet. And
so you called her to be married?
So I called her to be the eternal companion of J.D. Dockstader. And I wrote a letter and put it on official letterhead and rewrote it almost exactly like you would write it if you were getting a mission call. And they framed it. And literally this morning, for some reason, I read that. And that's when I knew it was 1993 because proposed in 94 and we were married in 1995.
Oh, that's so great. What did you think about that, by the way, Kendra, when you got that?
I actually loved it, right? It totally spoke to me because I'd been like, how do I know what I'm supposed to do? I think I'm supposed to go on a mission. So anyways, I loved it. It's pretty cute that it's framed in our bedroom now.
Heather was the same way. She was preparing to go on a mission, and then we started dating, and she was talking to her bishop, and she was feeling conflicted about dating me or not. And I was just like, she was so far on my leg, I didn't think there was a chance she'd marry me anyway. But then he just said, yeah, let's look at like the outcomes of a mission, the outcomes of being married and what that looks like. And so I didn't go as far as doing the letter. Yeah. That's a neat similarity that we have in that. So thank you for sharing. Kendra, what are we talking about today?
We have been temple prep teachers for about 3 years, and we're talking about temple prep.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about what your experience, what your temple worship looked like before. I'm guessing, the reason I asked that kind of a loaded question is I'm guessing this has changed or evolved or upgraded in some way your temple worship experience. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt that it causes you to look through things through a little different lens. And much like all of our different assignments or responsibilities, whether it's motherhood or fatherhood or being a grandparent or a Sunday school teacher, you have to all of a sudden stop and go, wait, am I doing what I should be doing? Do I have moral authority to be doing what I've been asked to do? And so whether that's, again, in callings or in life in general, you got to look for that moral authorities to be able to stand in front of somebody and teach.
Yeah, most definitely. And so what would you say, we're kind of beginning with the end in mind here, kind of cutting to that piece, Kendra. How has becoming a temple prep teacher changed your temple worship? How has it impacted that?
That's a great question, Will. I think really along with being a temple prep teacher as well as a parent that's had 3 of our 4 kids go through the temple, it's changed my perspective on, what do I need to do to be worthy to be in the temple, and what can I do to learn more while I'm there, right? How can I approach that? And then how in turn can I share that with the youth, with my kids that I, have gone through the temple and the youth that we're teaching.
So they've really inspired that because when you're teaching it, it's like a different perspective. It's one thing when we're doing it for us. It's another thing when we're doing it for the others on the other side of the veil. But when you're doing it, you're teaching in other young kids or your own kids, that meaning goes up significantly. Yeah. And so it sounds like you've been able to pick up a whole different level of understanding.
Yeah. I think one thing that kind of stuck out to me is if we're not teaching our kids or helping them get to a temple class, the world is teaching them. In this preparation, I found TikTok videos and Instagram videos from influencers, some good, some bad, that are teaching about the temple, right, wrong, and different, whatever it might be. So if we're not doing it, they're getting it somewhere else. And so that's kind of been my approach is what are they seeing out there? And how can I either build upon that's already in their algorithm feed, or what can I do to counteract that to say, hey, here's another angle to look at that? Because even some of the quote unquote positive influencers are taking very unique approaches to what happens within the temple. And that's, a level of sacredness or whatever it might be that you might agree or disagree with. That was my take, is like, how can I put my spin on this that's counteracted to maybe what they're getting in their normal feeds that we know they're watching.
It never occurred to me that in today's world, because of social media, that our kids are being prepared for the temple one way or another. It's almost like now it's a passive thing, as long as they have access to social media. And so when I say prepared, that might not be the right word. They're being trained. Yeah. They're being trained to see and understand the temple from different lights and angles. And if we just leave it into like how I don't remember going to a class. I don't remember my parents sitting down with me.
It was in the back seat of the car. Hey, Will, we're on our way. You're going to love this.
That's right? Exactly what it was. No fault to my parents, because that's what everyone did back then. Yeah. But nowadays, if we don't take control of and intentionally train to prep our children and our youth for the temple, someone else will. And like you said, it's not all bad, but I would argue most of it is.
Most of it probably is. And the church has done an amazing job. And that's one thing we joked about in our preparation. The manual they give you, we met the bishop, and he goes, will you be temple prep teachers? And he hands this book over. I think the copyright date is like 1978 or something.
No way.
The church has done amazing things in evolving and changing the way we teach and learn. Somehow they've left that one behind a little bit. And so the book itself, it's still valid and great, but we had to reinvent a way to reach these kids, to speak their language and to teach in the way they're going to understand, because quite frankly, the book's a little outdated.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, like I said, the days we went through, we were asked to go make 5 covenants. We didn't know what those covenants were until you were sitting there. You'd be like, I don't know if I want to make these, but I'm here now. Nowadays, we get to talk about those 5 covenants. We mention them by name. We discuss what they are and say, do you want to go make these covenants? And this is what's next, and these are the promises that come with those. We didn't get that. We showed up, and they're like, get ready, you're making a covenant. And you're like, what is it? Right? And so, again, the church has done such an amazing job opening that up, removing the secrecy and adding the sacredness to what's there.
Removing the secrecy and adding the sacredness to this. It's so funny because it's so true that, like, I really understand why there wasn't much mention of those covenants before we went in there, because they're just extensions of things we've already promised to do. If we're, but at the same time, there is that you don't want to have any surprises in those ways that would cause someone to lose presence to what's really going on. Kendra, something you said before we hit record is this idea that, like, you guys have had to change how you teach temple prep in the last 3 years. Why was that? Why did you have to evolve your teaching to the youth?
Well, we started off trying to teach out of that book, right? Like we were extended the call, and we're teaching 2 weeks later, and we're sort of I personally was a little bit like deer in the headlights, like,
sure.
How are we doing this? And so we kind of followed that. And, those youth, I think, are getting ready to come home from their missions, and bless their hearts.
It worked out.
I hope they made it on missions. But I think, I hope that this group that we just finished with like a month ago, I hope, I feel like we shared things with them and prepared them a little bit better, because we recognize, I think one of the things is youth these days are they're next level, right? You always hear that. But with that next level comes this element of questioning, because they have to know for themselves. And so we've had to approach it with information that they can take in and pray about. It was so cool this past time that we taught just a couple months ago. They would come back with these questions, and we look at each other, and JD go, you know what, let me figure that out for next time, because they're thinking about this and they're taking it in. And I feel like my experience when I went to the temple, nobody told me anything. I didn't even get the shout out in the back of the car. And I came out of there kind of mad, like, what? Nobody told me what was going on. And I felt a little blindsided.
As many people do. Yeah. Or used to do, at least.
Yeah. And I hope, these guys are going into it, like JD said, they know what at least what the covenants are called. that they're, about to make, and that they have more of a desire to know and be a little more prepared to go into that.
That's amazing. It's amazing that this new generation is looking for answers and questions. I think in a world where truth is hard to see, when you can deep fake any video, you can make it really hard. I had a friend who was telling me about the new AI voice cloning. He sent a text to our professional business group, and he's like, guys, this is super scary. I'm like, why is that? 5 seconds later, he sent me a voice memo from me saying that my last will and testament was to give all of my money and earnings to my best friend, Chris Cardinal, who's the guy that sent it to me.
Right.
But it was my voice.
Yeah.
He's like, do you get it now? And I went, yeah. So there's something about truth and authenticity that this generation really wants. Mm-hmm. So let's dive into that. What do you guys see? Because right now, just for a quick recap to the audience, tell the audience, who are you teaching temple prep to?
Yeah, so obviously anybody that's preparing to enter the temple is invited to come to the class. Traditionally, within our demographics of where we live, it's kids that are graduating high school, either preparing to go on a mission, preparing to leave the home, preparing even possibly to get married. And it covers the spectrum of all of them. Some of them have their calls already. Some of the young women are still in that decision phase and may not know if they want to go yet. But that's who's invited to come. Anybody that's preparing, but our experience has been with graduating seniors that are ready to kind of take the next step in life and the next step in the covenant path.
Yeah, I'm excited about today's episode for lots of reasons. One of them is that I think when someone gets called into being a temple prep teacher, wouldn't it be nice to hear a podcast episode from 3-year veterans to talk about what this is like, right? And what to think about, because for a lot of people that's the case. But for some temple prep teachers, it might be, older members of the church because they're in a more developing area of the world, whatever.
Right.
But I still think those concepts will be universal across the board. So what do you guys find are the challenges? You mentioned a little bit about that need for more data, and they have deeper questions. But what do you guys see are the challenges that these youth are facing as it comes to helping them understand and get ready for their temple experience?
I think probably a lack of understanding that it's something that they already know. You mentioned that as we first started. It's really building upon a foundation that's already there. Somehow in our culture, we've built it up that the temple is something so unique and different, and something you sing songs about, that you're going to go there someday. But yet it's really the same concepts and principles that we've taught since primary and since our early days of the church. And so that's the kind of the challenge. Is like, hey guys, this isn't some big giant new thing that's going to seem completely out of left field. At its core, and what we do there is the plan of salvation. And it's the symbolism that everything comes back to Christ. Yeah. That's it. Now, we do things that might be ritual-based, or you might have clothing that's special. But that's the same thing with a graduation. We're coming up on graduation season here soon. And same thing, we wear graduation robes to signify something. Guess what? Same thing happens in the temple. Do you want to make it look and sound weird? Or do you want to say, hey, this is exactly what I'm used to doing and seeing in other aspects of my life? So that's kind of been the challenges of changing that culture that may be in something so unique and different that you can experience there. It's not. It is line upon line, precept upon precept. You know this stuff. It is the plan of salvation. It's symbolism of Christ. Come on in.
Yeah, so you talk about the nuances, but you're really grounding it into something as an extension of what they already know, which is something that I think we get confused with all the signs, the tokens, the symbolism. When we really start to understand those things, it's like, I already know this. It's just a deeper way of connecting with it. Kendra, I wonder, from your perspective, JD was saying that a lot of the youth that come in, they don't know a lot about it, right? Yeah. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, it was interesting. I feel like they have little pieces that they hear about, right? Okay. Like new names or garments.
The garments are a big
that they know. Hot topic because they made some changes to them slightly recently. So things like that they'll pull out little pieces and ask questions about. But they didn't have. I think the idea that it was part of the plan, that it was like the plan of salvation, I think that was kind of a new...
Yeah, it felt new to them.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is nuanced. They hear things because, again, they're getting prepared or trained, better said, by social media one way or another. So they're bringing those elements of what they're hearing or seeing to class. Right. So that's cool that you guys create a safe place for that. What do you think parents should be doing? In my mind, I'm now realizing that my two youngest at home, like I don't talk to them about preparing them for the temple. They're 14 and 15.
Yeah, it feels a little bit out.
I mean, I talk to them about baptisms for the dead, and we talk about, covenants and those types of things. But in your opinion, do you think that that's something that they should be doing, or parents should be doing before they get to temple prep?
Right, like a little open conversation about things, even if it is some of those little nuanced things, like we've talked, our youngest isn't endowed, and we've had quite a conversation about these changes in the garment, for example, you know what I mean? But she was in our class a year ago, and so it was kind of fun to teach her, and we've talked a little bit more about like the plan of salvation and things like that. But yeah, I think relating things to the temple will make it easier in conversation, right? Open conversation with your kids now makes it easier when that time comes, because it's like, oh yeah, I talked about my parents, about this with my parents. Oh yeah, we talk about this at home.
I just have never done it.
Well, and I think you're doing it, you're not doing it. You're doing it, but you don't realize you're doing it. I go back to that moral agency. If your kids are seeing you go to the temple, you're teaching them about the temple, right? So you may not be having these conversations, but imagine not going to the temple on a regular basis. Your kids don't see you going. They're like, what's that weird bag that you carry out of the house once every 8 months, right? And then you come to them and say, hey, you really need to go do this. It doesn't fly with them, right? But so the fact that the kids are seeing you go to the temple, they see you talking about it, they're seeing you give firesides and talks and even running a podcast about it, right? Yeah. You're teaching them more than you think you are. Now, on an occasion, can a parent sit down and be like, hey, let me just tell you a little bit about why I'm going and this name that I'm going for and what that's about? Then I think it sparks that interest and opens up that dialogue to where you can almost ask any question outside the temple, right? And have a meaningful conversation about it without revealing what we've been asked to keep sacred. And I think our older generation, and maybe that's the way they had to live life, and that's what they were prepared for in that time, and keeping these things that sacred was needed. And now we need to be more open and honest about, and not honest, but more open-minded about those conversations because of the generation which we're teaching.
I love the idea that we're teaching them by example first and foremost, right? It's like teach always, sometimes use words, and that's true. And I still am grounded by that thing you guys were talking about earlier called our kids are receiving information whether we are speaking to them or not. So I almost feel this like increased urgency of like sitting down with my boys and explaining them why I'm doing the podcast, right? Like, why are we going to the temple? Why do we have the bag? Because I think that as we get into the latter days, things become more clear at the temple. The ceremony has become way more refined as we continue to receive revelation, and it's so beautiful, and it's become this more like clear way of understanding worship. And yet the information, the misinformation, the way it's being perceived is so much more against the kids as they are growing.
And you said the key word, and there's a line in the temple that gives us that perfect out. The endowment session was given by revelation and should be received by revelation, right? Yeah. And you just said that. It's like, you know what? I don't have to teach you everything because I'm still learning, and you're going to learn it by revelation, right? And so that was kind of the weight off my shoulders, just trying to teach them what these guys, they have to understand what the new name is. They don't until they're in there and they're pondering it for themselves and they're seeking that personal revelation. They can understand why, and it's just like they did in the time of the Bible, right? Simon got a new name, and when you commit to a new lifestyle and a new commitment to Christ, people were given new names. Okay, so you understand the basics of it. Now enter the temple and ponder about it and receive it deeper by revelation. Yeah. And that's all they need to know.
So I love that. So talking about this generation who wants truth and authenticity, I've experienced, like we were talking about before we hit record, how the youth, they also don't want to, like the why behind it is something that I think you guys are far along the road in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do you teach the youth the why we go to the temple? If we just say it's because we're coming closer to Jesus, they're like, well, yeah, that's everything. So how do you make them want to go and like have their own desire to actually attend the temple? Or not, I shouldn't say how do you make them. Did I say make them? How do you force them? How do you invite them to develop that internal desire to naturally go to the temple and make covenants?
Good question. There was something, so there's this book by Anthony Sweat that we actually gave to our students at the end. And at the very beginning, I was was reviewing it kind of in preparation for this. And the very first, intro page, it has a quote from Joseph Smith. And it says, "I want all you to know God, to be familiar with him. And when we know how to come unto him, God begins to unfold the heavens to us and tell us all about it." And I think the key is, right, teaching them, wanting them to have that desire to have the heavens unfold to them, right? God wants to share everything when you prepare to get to know him, right? To
That's
come
powerful.
to the temple to know him. Which I think that's like the key, right? To teach them to want to know God.
So you show them through that quote and some other things that like God is waiting for them.
Yeah.
Come. I want to
exactly.
know you more.
He's
I want you to
inviting.
know me more.
Yes. Know me more. Yeah.
So being the typical male, I'm going to look at it from a more selfish standpoint. I'm like, what's in it for me, right?
Yeah, right.
And,
which, by the way, is probably very appropriate for this generation as well.
yeah, and I think it is. I mean, it's something like, okay, that's great. Like you said, getting to know Jesus better, but really what's in it for me? And I'm going to bookend that quote with, and I can't say it as President Nelson did, but he talked about only through attendance at the temple will you have access to God's power. So that kind of sent me down this, well, what is God's power? Can I create worlds without ends? Can I, well, no, that's not what he's talking about yet. But when I'm here on this earth in this temporal experience, God's power is more patience, more assertiveness, more love, more kindness, all those things that embody God, I get access to by sheerly attending the temple. And then I started battling with, well, I'm going to the temple for all these personal reasons. It kind of feels self-serving. But you can't really get into the temple and through the temple without serving somebody else. And I found that very amazing. It's like, all right, I'm always seem to go to the celestial room looking for answers, looking for counsel or guidance or comfort. But yet the only way I get there is through doing the work for somebody else, sacrificing my time, my energy, my effort to do something for somebody else in the service. And then at the end, I may get access to God's power. And I can't do it without service first.
Isn't it interesting? Going to the law of sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're obedient, the next thing you do, because obedience is a little bit about me. I'm obedient because I love God and I want him to love me. And I think obedience is fairly transactional, which is fine because it's the foundational level. Sacrifice is where we step that up into transformational, because now I'm giving something to somebody else because I have to see God in you and you and you and love my neighbor, which is that second thing. And so as I'm going into that space, it's interesting how in my experience, I have felt God's love for other people and then me easier than just me. When you're praying when you were bishop and you were looking for revelation for callings, or when we're praying for our kids and we're really looking for something for our child, it's almost easier to feel God's love through us to them, which then imprints on us his love for us in return. It's an interesting, like he wants us to feel loved, but he knows the processes that we have to serve others.
To actually change us. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to jump in now. I'm in my mind selfishly, where I'm going in my head with this time with you is recognizing that I want to start building my own temple prep class in my home, because I don't want to leave it to default to the world to teach my kids what an influencer thinks about clothing or whatever. I wonder if you could share things that you guys teach in your temple prep class. It doesn't have to be in a specific order or anything, but is there anything that comes to mind that you have taught or do teach that stands out when you're teaching the youth?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, I've created a couple different slide decks that we use as we go through the process. And really, I kind of focus on the symbolism side of things. I'll throw up a picture of a heart, the Red Cross, the international sign for peace. Like, what do these mean? Or the American flag, right? What do these invoke? What feelings do they invoke upon you when you see that? Yeah. When you see two wedding rings together, right? What does that mean to you? And so I love to teach that concept of symbolism, because within the temple, as we know, there's just symbolism from the moment you get out of the car in the parking lot, looking at the building itself,
right,
to as you walk through the entire process. There's symbolism everywhere. And so I like to talk about that, because, again, some of the things that may get spun off as cultish or weird is just symbolism. And for the only reason that God knows that that's how we learn. We learn through symbolism. If it was all text, if it was all a movie, then we might forget it. But when he combines everything, the emotional side, the textual, the video, the signs and tokens that are all involved in there, there's so many different avenues to learn and then remember from.
Yeah.
And so I love the symbolism that's there within the clothing, within the altars, within the paintings, within the woodwork, everything. I mean, just as simple as the altar is, I mean, the altar is Jesus Christ. And sometimes I just think, well, no, that's just an altar where you go to get married. No, but that is, just remember the symbolism that's there. So that's really what I love to focus in on. I can lose the time is, let's talk about the symbolism that's there.
Does this younger generation gravitate towards that? Do they like learning about the symbols?
You see that aha moment. They're like, oh, yeah, that's kind of neat. Yeah, so they see that, right? Gravitate? I don't know. Again, we only get them for 45 minutes. A few days.
For how many weeks?
Well, it should be 5 to 6 weeks. But again, that book is just not enough content there. So, and they spend a lot of time talking about Solomon's temple. I'm like, I get it. I mean, the history goes back a long ways. And you and I and the older generation, they might the connection to the ancient temples is pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
They don't care, right? So, yeah, we get them for 3 weeks. We've condensed it into 3 weeks. And
you
so
have the
it's pretty
temple
tight.
prep class in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what do you cover? Can you outline a little bit about, so you cover symbols. What else do you guys cover?
Let's see. We cover
Obviously, the five covenants. We spend a lot of time talking about the five covenants.
How much time is the five covenants when you're teaching
a
them?
lesson.
Yeah, it's a full lesson.
So that's 1/3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
We talk about preparation, obviously, like actual steps, right? What you need to go buy things. You need to have an interview with the bishop and the stake president.
The
What I mean? The
process.
actual process.
Yep.
Yeah. We go over that.
We talk about worthiness is a big thing.
Yeah,
And we talk
worthiness.
the difference between worthiness and perfection. I think that's something that this generation struggles with is this confusion of am I worthy, am I perfect? And they think that's sometimes one and the same, and it's not.
Let's double click on that.
Yeah.
Let's double click. How have you experienced the youth understanding of worthy versus perfect?
It's probably more with our own children than we have with these kids. Again, we see them at church and we see them for these 45 minutes within our home there. But watching our own children, and I'm teaching Sunday school right now as well. And I think it's just this expectation that they have to live a perfect life, and that I think a lack of understanding of the atonement is all-reaching, right? That again, not everything is something you have to confess to the bishop, but yet you can still seek repentance through prayer and accessing the atonement in your bedroom at night, and that's sufficient for him and for you to enter his holy house.
We had this opportunity this last class. Our middle daughter was home, and we asked her. She went through the temple a couple years ago, and we asked her to share her experience because a lot of these kids knew her, know who she is, and
she's relatable. She's one of them.
Yeah. She's not.
Exactly.
She's not that much older than them, and. So she shared because she didn't go on a mission, and she's not married. She had kind of just this desire to go through the temple. And then she went up to BYU, and her stake president gave a talk that was encouraging anyone who, wasn't endowed to seek to know if they were ready, if they should be endowed. And he just encouraged it. And so she started praying about it, and then she came home, and she was like, I think I want to go through the temple. And again, this kind of goes back to that checking the box, right? She was like, I'm not going on a mission. I'm not getting married. Should I do this now? And she kind of questioned it, and we counseled with her and talked about it, and she decided to do it. And then what she shared with them is that the following year was probably one of the hardest years of her life. But she had this foundation of the temple that she's like, I can see directly that Heavenly Father wanted me to be, prepared and have that armor, so to speak, to make it through that really hard year.
Wow.
And so I just think the world is hard right now, right? And they don't need, they need the temple in their life. And there's lots of people encouraging that, and it doesn't have to be for a mission or for, getting married. It can be because you want to take that next step on the covenant path.
Thank you, Kendra, for separating out the concept of what the temple is as a part of the covenant path and not part of a life plan.
Yeah.
I think we confuse life plans and covenant paths.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have children who haven't followed the traditional process. And it's interesting when your kids don't follow that process, the typical life plan. And this is for people who are listening who might live in a bit of a bubble. I would say that we live in Gilbert in what I call a bubble of, and it's so amazing that it actually adds a weird sort of like inverse pressure to do things in a very typical order fashion at a certain age, timeline. And when our kids aren't going through that, talk about the pressure of perfectionism that really starts to show up, and the adversary loves to use that. Mm-hmm. But there's something freeing. As hard as I hate as a parent having my child kind of struggle through that, but it's their courage that breaks me free of what I see and describe more as culture of how things are supposed to go, because there's no judgment on people who follow life plans. It's wonderful, but that's not the covenant path. And everyone's called in different ways in different times and different seasons. And it's, the Lord is all about variety. And so even though these things are all where we want to go, it's like who and when and how is all in his timing. Right. The Lord never said marriage has to happen in between 20 and 25 years old.
Unless you're living in Provo on campus.
Right. Well, I think
another cultural shift that needs to happen.
Totally. It's like that whole concept is so but it's so commonly thought of that it's hard for kids to distinguish between culture and the path in those regards.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that share.
That's so true.
Well, guys, this is so fun to think about how we can develop that. Now, let's take a step. As you know, a big chunk of our audience is in Africa, and these are very, very new members of the church. And so we love all of you in Africa as you're listening to this. And so when you think about what would you want someone who's brand new in the church, someone who doesn't even know that they can go back more than once. Yeah. Like, how would you speak to them about the first steps maybe they should take in getting ready for the temple? Is it more tactical in terms of the process? Is it more mindset? Is it more, what would you guys say about that?
We almost talk about that it could potentially be a negative thing. To me, what a beautiful opportunity to be a clean slate of not having any preconceived notions or expectations or teachings that happen. To me, it's like, I think the rule is you've got to wait a year after conversion to enter the temple. To me, it's like, man, the sooner you can get there, the better. And obviously, the most frequent you can, the better. But I would focus less on the processes and what's next, because it's all there. It's going to be taking place for you. Just focus on knowing that, again, it's all centered on Christ, that it is a place to go to know him better.
I love that. I love that. So centered on Christ. What would you say,
I was
Kendra?
just going to say, I think what I would say is it's just line upon line. Go because you want to for the first time, right? And that's okay. And take it in. And then go back because you want to know more. And go back because you want to, understand this, or you noticed this, and you'll get it, right? It starts flowing. And, things will be opened up to you as you try it. Like we already said, you receive things by revelation. So as we seek answers, it'll open up to us.
I'll add to that too, that I can only imagine they might feel some intimidation of people that have been there before, workers or other people. There's something so beautiful about the equality that happens within the temple. The moment you walk in, this sense of equality, whether it's your first time or your 1,000th time, one, nobody knows, and two, it doesn't matter. Right. And they don't care, and you don't care, and it's everything from being dressed similarly to what you're doing. It's just the equality. So there's absolutely zero intimidation or comparison that you might feel within your ward chapels or within your friend group. That all disappears once you enter his house, because there is no comparisons.
And that there's always someone there to help you, right? Yeah. Even the person sitting next to you can probably help you if you're like, hey, I'm not sure what to do, or whatever, right there. Or there's temple workers that are always going to very lovingly, quietly try and help you with whatever
I'm so glad you said that, Kendra, because, I think that's everyone's fear.
Mm-hmm.
When anyone, I don't care how old or young you are, when you're in a new environment, it's about fitting in and belonging. So when you're in this new environment, the intimidation, knowing that there's someone who will always be there to support you. And so there's nothing to worry about. Yeah. Everything is going to be amazing. I love that advice. I think that's very sage advice. I have a question that came to mind that I feel like I'm supposed to ask you guys that is a little bit left field. We've lived in Gilbert next to each other for well over a decade, maybe 2 decades. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
How do you think when the Gilbert Temple was built within a walk of our homes, how has that, in retrospect, how do you think that's impacted your family, if at all?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just seeing it every day, what an amazing blessing to have that constant reminder to every time you leave your neighborhood, you've got to drive past it. So I love just that constant reminder of what it stands for and who it is and how often we should go there. I wish it said, well, because I can walk to it, I go to it 3 times a week now. Unfortunately, I'm weak and don't
2 to 3 times a week. Let's not put that kind of judgment out there.
That's true.
Because
I would say once a month would be great too. But
exactly.
But it just the visibility of it, and I would think the other part is talking about it to the non-members. I mean, there's people that I'm giving directions to for a work event that I'm overseeing, and they're like, "Oh, is that over there by that big Mormon temple?" Yeah, it is. Actually, I live on the same block at that. Have you ever been to it? It's opened up conversations and opportunities that it wouldn't be if I wasn't living so close to it and using it as a marker of where to drive.
A literal landmark, spiritually and physical, as you're guiding yourself. So for you, just that visual reminder has been a huge impact in your life.
Yeah.
What about you?
It's literally, I think they announced the Gilbert Temple like a year or 2 after we moved here.
Yeah.
And then, it obviously it took time to secure everything, build the temple, blah, 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 but our kids participated in the cultural celebration.
I was watching property values. That's where my head went, right?
And even, we've had, our son was married there. It's played a huge role in our family. And what a blessing that it is that easy. I know it's like a tender mercy in my life that it's so close. I mean, the people you're talking about in Africa, it's not going to be that close, I'm sure. It's a total blessing in our lives. I think about even talking with my siblings. I'll be like, oh yeah, when I went to the temple today or blah, blah, blah. And, a couple of my siblings don't live very close to temples. So it's like a couple-hour drive or whatever. Wow. And it's, it's huge. It plays a huge role. So I can't wait for others to experience that so they can be drawing on that,
I agree. And I think I feel a bit of responsibility around it too. I think that for me, one thing that I think is really evident when we started the show in particular, one of the strong impressions I had with Temple Bound was that I was being called so I could interview the amazing people who are living nearby because first of all, they are amazing to begin with. But the temple being nearby really aids in their progression. So it's a matter of taking what we've been almost hitting the zip code lottery in that regard of being close to a temple so that we can now broadcast this to people who don't. And it's because the Lord loves all of us the same. And I don't know why he blesses some of us in some ways and challenges us in others. But at the end of the day, it all feels equal because when we went to Africa last time, for me, it felt like a sacrifice initially. We were being invited from a guest of Temple Bound to go explore some of these orphanages. And when we went, it was I was wanting to go, but then there was when it actually came to spending the money and going, it was really hard. I was super busy. I didn't want to take a week off, and because it was going to be a work trip, and you're traveling, and we get there, and I recognized how being able to serve our brothers and sisters who have been blessed and challenged differently. It's not better or worse. It's just different. They healed me. I needed them more than they needed me. My service, the minuscule service that I provided, the minuscule financial aid that our group provided was so small compared to the blessings that they gave us by showing us firsthand what a consecrated life looks like and what sacrifice and what love looks like, and faith in Jesus Christ. And these aren't, in many cases, members of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. These are people that when we see them in the next life, all these wonderful temple blessings are going to be, there'll be formalities for them.
Yeah.
All these things that they do. Yeah. So I love that the temple has blessed your lives so much.
I love that story because God is in the details, right? Like you've been prepared and done so many things so that you could do that. And he's been working on you for so long, but he's been working on them for so long. And then he brought your stories together, and it's all his plan.
Yeah, I love it. And I think one thing that you said when you said that, I love that because it does make me seem like a good guy, I'm decent. I haven't kicked any puppies today.
You got a great hairline.
Thank you. I'm working on it. But the thing is, the bigger thing for me, and this is true, I think this is going back to the youth and how to teach them, is that like I am selfish by nature in a way that serves me. Meaning, when I started doing all these things, I was like, I wanted more of it for me. I'd love to tell you that it was for my ancestors or whatever, but it's like I wanted the blessings for my kids. Sure. So as you guys are going through that and you're helping this generation, I think that's powerful by showing them the love of Christ. One question that came to mind, kind of another left field. For you guys, when you go to the temple, as you've been going and now preparing, what's something that the temple has taught you in the last 3 years that's maybe a deeper version of something you've already known or maybe something new? While you guys are thinking about it, I knew you guys would have to think for a minute. So I'd like to just share one thing just to kind of give an example. I have such a stronger testimony of the power of womanhood. I have come to respect women at a totally, I've always had a great respect. I'm a product of 2 very strong sisters and a wonderful mother who in sometimes provided for our family when my dad was in between things at times. But I really believe that the adversaries worked really hard to suppress women specifically. And in the temple, we learn how none of us would literally be here in every way possible without them. And so that's one of my favorite things I've learned. Is there something that you guys have experienced or learned in the temple that's new or deeper?
I'll go first this time. I think for me, actually, when we taught that first time and we started trying and talked about symbolism, I was like, whoa, I'm missing a lot of this. I was sort of like, it kind of knocked me on my butt.
Awesome.
And I was like, wow. So that's really been something that I've been trying to learn more about. And I feel like I have, and particularly symbolism of our Savior in the temple. And
is there a symbol that comes to mind that you can think of, or maybe we can't say? Is there anything that comes to mind offhand?
No, not offhand, but
I appreciate. But overall, the symbolism has just really helped you see the Savior.
It is, yeah, and just more. And I think part of that also came with the changes that they've made through the video, and just how much more present Christ is, and because I think to your point, you were saying a lot of times you go and you're kind of thinking about, what am I supposed to be getting out of this, and me a little bit. Like we've already kind of talked a little bit about that. But I find myself drawn more to my Savior and, and thinking about him and how to be more like him and everything that he's done for me, how he can redeem me and enable me, So
it's maybe you want to learn Hebrew. That symbolism, sometimes in some study, be like, the Hebrew root, or the Hebrew word, the Latin root, and oh my gosh, this is 10 layers deeper than my mind could ever go.
Right.
I would love to be a scholar in Latin and Hebrew languages because I think there's just some amazing things there. But I would say my answer to your question, and it piggybacks a little bit on yours, is the access to the priesthood that everybody has. Again, I grew up in a home, again, very loving father and mother. And my mother always kind of deferred to the priesthood holder, right? Oh, well, he's got the priesthood. He knows best, right? And it was very, very traditional that way, and deferred to my dad in so many ways that way. And I loved him for that, and we've learned from that. But, like you said, women and then the priesthood, it is accessible to all. It is not gender specific. The roles are not outlined. The equality for men and women and children and angels and it's there. And that's kind of one thing that I think over the last 3 years have just really stuck out to me is access to the priesthood. To use it is not gender specific.
Love that. Okay, last question before we get to our lightning round questions. And don't be scared by that. The last question I have is, what would be one bit of advice that you would give to a newly called temple prep teacher somewhere in the United States or in the world? They just got this calling, they're sitting on it, they're listening to this episode. What would you say is one piece of advice that each of you would give to them so that they could just have a little nugget of something to help them move forward?
Pray about who you're teaching. I mean, that's kind of a given,
by name.
right?
But I don't think we should take that for granted. I love that. Pray about who you're teaching. I love
by
that.
name, because I feel like that's truly how like some of the kids that we teach, we don't really know, right?
Sure.
But we want to speak to them and teach them and help them. So I think that's a huge one, is pray for them. And what?
Mine would be creative in your preparation. Be comfortable getting outside the box a little bit. You've got to meet them where they're at. Know where the line is. Know where the influencers are talking about.
Sure.
And be prepared to combat that with the language and the same approach that they're taking. Because again, if we're not teaching them, they're being taught by somebody else. And so, find those influencers. I mean, we stumbled into some amazing podcasts and YouTube channels that are a little edgy for my upbringing, right?
So they're positive.
They're
but
positive.
They're probably not the way you would want them to
Exactly.
learn.
They're pushing the envelope, and again, to each their own, and I don't have to worry about that in my salvation. So, but be familiar with them and look at that approach and some of the information that's coming there and what does fit within your style and your comfortability to teach that. But get creative. You got to branch away from Solomon's temple. It's important, and there's a lot of relativity there, but they don't care about Solomon's temple. They want to know
they want to know what's in it for them.
Exactly.
Like, why are they? Why is this important? I love that, JD. That was so cool. I will say, as you guys were both talking, I felt this impression of something I know you guys do organically well, which is just to make it also really safe. Because if we do research people and we're learning about these influencers, I think it'd be really good to go, if you ever hear anyone talk about us being a cult, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe I will tell you in sales, when you're selling somebody on a service or product, one of the things they teach us is the importance of bringing up the concerns and conflicts before they do. By bringing them up, we gain trust. Because we're like, now listen, you might be thinking if you buy this product, it's because we're da-da-da-da-da. It's like, wow, I did think that. And then you answer it. And so maybe there's something to be said about, like you said, being aware of what's out there, bringing it up in advance. It's a fine line because you also don't want to bring all those things up to them.
I think we led with, right when we started this class, the big hubbub of Secret Lives for Mormon Wives was airing, right? And their tagline was, leave the garments at home.
No, it wasn't.
We open it. I mean, I did not know that. That's a great thing. Guys, it's all over NBC, CBS, whoever's carrying that. That was their tagline, leave the garments at home. I'm like, that's where we met them because we knew that's what you were seeing and hearing. And
did they know it? Did they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Some of them did. Some of the boys didn't, but
all the girls
did. Yeah, I think so. But I think that's really key, right? That comfort space. Like JD literally said, okay, we've been talking about all this here for 45 minutes in our house. You're going to go home and your phone just listened to you and you're going to start getting stuff pushed to you about this. And he's like, come back. Let's talk about what you see and what you hear, And we did. They came with some questions the next week,
Have you ever had people bring really controversial topics up at all or concerns?
No. Again,
nothing comes to mind, but
they're conscious of their environment and their peers that are with them as well. But hopefully they would feel the trust is there. If something was really getting them, they'd come to us or a parent or
and
a
nothing
leader.
else. Yeah, hopefully they could go to parents or maybe their young men leader and be like, hey, we talked about this in temple prep and I saw this. What do you think?
I think when I say controversial too, I think of it as the things that are taken from a misguided light that twist it into controversy. Because when you're taught it line upon line with light, it's almost it's cool, but it's almost boring in the sense that it's like it
just makes sense.
It's more of the same.
Yeah.
It's all the things that we learned in primary, just at a much more advanced level.
Yes.
Okay, guys, this has been such a fun topic to talk about with you guys. I'm so grateful for this discussion. I'd like to wrap things up with a rapid fire question. So we'll start with Kendra and go to JD and go back and forth. So the really easy questions. Favorite temple?
Oh, Gilbert for me.
Yep.
Followed closely by Salt Lake. Because that's where we were married.
That's where Heather and I were married too.
Yeah. Oh.
I would say Salt Lake City, again, being born and raised there in the Valley.
And then you were born there. That's cool.
Yeah, born and raised in Sandy. But I'm absolutely amazed at the reconstruction project that's gone on. The things that they've done there, that temple is miraculous. And so I'm so excited to go back and do the open house and see that.
My favorite thing that they're doing at the Salt Lake Temple is they're building out a celestial room that you can just go in any time of the year in the visitor center. How cool is
Isn't
that?
that cool?
Amazing.
Yeah, I
So
love.
cool.
We're demystifying. What did you say, JD, at the beginning of this? It's
Yeah,
about
taking
secret-
away
The
the secretness and adding the sacredness.
Well, I think that's going to be the title of the episode. Okay, so we'll start with JD. Where's somewhere in the world that you've been that you've loved, or somewhere you want to go?
Thailand. I've been to Thailand. Would love to take Kendra back to Thailand and just
I'm here.
less work, more pleasure trip when we go next time.
Love it. What about you, Kendra?
Someplace I've been, or someplace.
Or
Sorry, what
you can,
was the
so
question?
where's somewhere you've been in the world that you just love? You know me, I'm into travel, so I build
Yeah.
this in for my interest.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, or somewhere you haven't been that you'd love to go sometime.
Oh, I super want to go to Banff.
Banff.
Yeah, we've talked. JD just sent me some reels on this. I really want to go there and check it out.
Love it.
See it. Go hiking. Yeah.
I've wanted to go there too, and it's so close. I'm
Yeah.
actually irritated I haven't done it.
I know.
All right, so starting with Kendra this time, who is someone, we're thinking now about the family history side of this. So looking at your family lineage,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it can be a parent. I'm looking for like a leader, you know, so a parent, grandparent, someone living or deceased. Who is someone who's impacted your life and why?
Oh wow. I think for me it's my sister. I'm the youngest by far, and I only have one sister, and we're 14 years apart. But I've just always looked up to her. I looked up to her, you know, as a mom, as a grandma now. I've just always looked up to her.
She sounds like a maternal figure and a best friend.
Yeah. I mean, my mom's great too, but it just, you know what I mean.
It was the
that
first one that came to
sisterhood.
mind.
Yeah.
And what's her
Yeah.
name?
Terry.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. What about you, JD?
In the context that you asked, I would say my grandma Vita, only because I watched her do what we call our Book of Remembrances.
Yes, I remember those.
Yeah, so again, I'm a child, the product of the 70s, and my grandma at age of 8 gave me a Book of Remembrance and continued to build on it. So I have all my history and the photos and my lineage and stuff. I always said I don't have to do any temple work because she did it all. We've learned that's not really the case. There's still plenty to be done. But I love looking through my Book of Remembrance, and that was given to me by my mom's mom, Vita Didrikson, and she's kind of been a stalwart. You know, she's passed many years ago, but I watched her go to the temple as a kid, and you know, she's been influential that way.
I love that. You prefaced that by the context in which I asked the question. Did you have somebody else come to mind?
No, only the fact that, you know, she mentioned her sister, and I thought, oh yeah, there's plenty of people in my life, but again, my mind immediately went to Grandma Vita.
Love it. So the last question, and this is always the last question. This is going to be out there for your grandkids, great grandkids, and descendants you don't even know. What would you want them to know? Speaking directly to them, what would you want them to know about your love for the temple? And any one of you can go first.
To me, it's the primary answer. We know that it's there that you take the final required covenant to return to God's presence. And while that might not be exactly how it happens in our timeline here, whether it's here or in the afterlife, a marriage covenant ultimately is going to be required to see Him. And to me, that's what it stands for. It's a daily reminder of the covenant I've made with my wife, that nothing in this world is worth breaking.
I love that answer. What about you, Kendra?
I think what I would share is that I love the temple. I go there when I'm happy. I go there when I'm sad, when I'm questioning, when I'm hurting, when I'm confused, whatever, right? Times of joy, times of hard. And that's what our Heavenly Father wants us to do. He wants us to go there and seek Him for that peace and for that relationship to strengthen it. And I'm really grateful that we did land in the zip code we did and that we are as close as we are to the temple.
Man, that really hit me. I started choking up there. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been such a special conversation. And for all of you who tuned into Temple Bound, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been a wonderful episode. So as we sign off, please remember that the most important thing to know of all time is that you are loved because you exist, because you are the Saviors. So keep going, keep fighting, and never give up. Until next time. July is Missionary Month on Temple Bound. Think of one person who needs this: a missionary in the field, someone packing for the MTC, or a parent watching their child get ready to go or come home. Go ahead and send them this episode, because one listener, one share, one missionary drawn is a little bit closer to Christ. Temple Bound is brought to you by the Light on a Hill Foundation, a nonprofit aimed at building and strengthening families across the globe. Produced by Heather Humphreys, with show notes and social media managed by Isabel Dizen and Kimberly Simbahan. Wardrobe by Ann Collar. These views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are on their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thank you for joining us today as we continue learning, growing, and striving to bind our lives closer to the Savior. Until next time.